Now, when VR finally takes over and everybody is in their pods and we're all just living in virtual reality, then yeah, I would say there's probably not going to be a console with a physical controller any longer. We are getting later and later into 2023, so that means that the Xbox One is 10 years old now, the Xbox 360 is 18 years old, and the original Xbox is 22 years old. So the question comes up a lot of the time of, will Microsoft ever stop making a console titled the Xbox? And then on the other side of things, you got Sony and Nintendo, who've been making video game consoles even longer, and the question is valid. Will they ever stop making consoles because it just doesn't make sense financially, or the technology isn't there, or maybe it's just time for everybody to throw away all these console things and just go to a PC and we'll all be part of the PC master race? So if you're like me, you've heard this argument before. I think I first started hearing this argument about the PlayStation 2, Xbox 360-ish era, where people were saying that the technology was so advanced that pretty soon there wasn't going to be a need for a console anymore, computers were getting really fast, and that pretty soon there wasn't going to be a need for any of these consoles anymore. Everything would just run on the PC and you just wouldn't need a physical game console to play just video games. So why would Microsoft even consider stop making a console? Well, number one, they don't make any money. They actually lose money on every single Xbox that they sell. For those of us that are not financially savvy, that means that Microsoft spends more money to produce an Xbox console than it actually gets back whenever it sells it. And of course, retailers are selling these things for $300 and $500, but Microsoft's selling to distribution networks, they don't charge nearly that much. Of course, the idea behind this is that if they can get Xboxes into people's hands, that they are going to make money off of the software sales, the subscription services, the games as a service, and all of your microtransactions that go along with a lot of games nowadays. But do they actually need a console to do that? Because currently you can do cloud gaming on almost any device that you have. Most tablets, most computers, most smartphones can actually do some sort of cloud gaming, so you don't really need an Xbox console. Hey, if you guys like these videos and you find them informative and helpful, take a second and consider hitting that little subscribe button down there. It really does help out the channel and spread the word. And since Microsoft just did this mid-gen refresher with the Xbox Series S, giving it more storage space, it is very obvious that Microsoft is pushing digital download, diskless items, streaming items, and Game Pass. And we can see the evidence for that right here on the Xbox homepage. Of course, they have announcements for brand new games up top, but the very first thing that you see is Game Pass. Right here on the very top, the very first thing that you see is Game Pass. If we scroll down just a little bit, they have Game Pass again. They have the Xbox Series S showing off, and you get a free copy, in this case, of Madden 24 if you buy a Series S console. So Microsoft is clearly pushing their company towards streaming, towards diskless options. And these options have been around for about 10 years now, because it all started with the Xbox One. And Sony is right behind Microsoft on this because this is their first generation of a diskless console, which tells me that Sony sees that this is the future. We are looking over here on Statista, number of subscribers for Game Pass as of January 2022, and the official number at this time is 25 million subscribers. And the jumping from one generation console to the next, it is not the same like it was in the old video game days. When you had your Nintendo Entertainment System, it was 8 bits, and then when you jumped to your Super or to your Sega Genesis, it was clearly twice as good. The processor was twice as good, the graphics were twice as good, the controllers were twice as good, and it was a very easy comparison to set up a Nintendo versus a Super Nintendo, and you immediately saw the difference. That is not the case with this generation versus the last generation. Your processor, your RAM, your hardware is clearly better and more powerful, but it's not nearly twice as good. This generation and last generation both had the ability to have 4K graphics on your TV, had the ability to stream games and do remote play. Both had the ability for backwards compatibility, and even things like your controllers for the Xbox and for the PlayStation are compatible on both this gen and last gen of consoles. Gaming graphics as well have improved massively over the past decade. We're seeing a a bunch of games that have a 4K resolution, 120 frames per second, very near real-life photorealism graphics. I don't think we're there yet, but I could easily see us hitting that point in the next 5 to 10 years. There's only so much RAM, there's only so much power, there's only so much processing that you can get out of a console. And other than a few things like an expansion card for a little bit more space, when a console comes out, that is how it is. There's usually not upgradable things inside of these consoles. So if Microsoft doesn't really need to make a console, why are they making a console? Well, here's a few reasons why. You can get a much longer run out of a console than you can out of a PC. So if you guys haven't heard already, the Xbox 360 store is being finally shut down for good. This is happening in 2024, so that is almost 20 years after the Xbox 360 came out, which means that essentially Microsoft got 20 years out of this console. Now, I don't think we're going to see the same thing with the Xbox One because of the things I talked about with the generation lines kind of blurring, but that is plain and simple proof that you get a lot more distance out of a console. It also takes a lot more effort and patience with a PC than it does for a console. Imagine a PC from almost 20 years ago. That would have been a very basic, maybe Windows 2000 machine. Imagine trying to run anything on that computer nowadays, or even to get it to power on because the components are just so old. The idea behind a console, of course, is that you select your game or you put in the disc and it just plays and it just works. There's no properties to go into, there's no drivers that need to update, there's no messing with the video configurations or audio. So overall, it's just easier to use. Consoles also have more of a comfortable feeling and they're focused on video game playing, where of course your PC does a wide range of things. It's much more focused. Microsoft knows that if you have an Xbox console, there's a really good chance that you are playing video games on it. And in the long run, if you bought a brand new Xbox 360 for the $300 price tag that it was going for and you still have it to this day, your cost for that console spread out over that time is significantly cheaper than what you would have spent on keeping a PC up to date. Now, of course, the Xbox 360 is not relevant when it comes to modern gaming. However, it is still a very good, very functional video game console. I personally don't see Microsoft or Sony not making a physical console in the near future. Now, when VR finally takes over and everybody is in their pods and we're all just living in virtual reality, then yeah, I would say there's probably not going to be a console with a physical controller any longer. But all sci-fi aside, these game companies want you to subscribe to their services, so they're going to give you a very simple machine that is easy to use, that is going to put their content in your hands. Hey, thank you guys for watching. Leave me a comment down below. If you guys like these videos, you can check out another one that I have made, and you can find that one right here.